I'm going to start. So I made in Photoshop, I'm not going to show you because I've already done it. Just this little, sorry. So we had this flame sheet and just this little like torch stump. That'll just be like an empty torch that is going to be off, okay? And then I want it so if it's activated, it'll start playing the fire. And if it's not activated, it'll turn off. All good? So what I need to do is obviously import this into Unity. There it is. I think it's 256, so I just need to set up all this stuff in case you don't remember. So 256 per unit. It is a single. Apply this. So I'm going to set it up over here, just to the side. So there's my torch stump. And then I'm going to apply just any of the flame sheets, because I know that I can animate these. But I'm going to apply just one of them as a child, okay, to that torch stump. I'm just going to make sure. Is that a million miles away? It is. I don't know why it does this sometimes, but if it appears over here, just make sure 0, 0. And let's put it up here. Is that maybe too big? I think it's okay. It's just a huge torch. And then I want to make sure the ordering layer, we haven't done sorting layers yet. But let me just make sure the ordering layer is this one. Let's put this to 2, and let's put this to 3 so it goes in front. All good so far? So it's literally like just the torch stump, and then it's got a child. That's my flame sheet, and we know this can animate because we've done that before. So that's all set up. What I want to do is have this interact with something. So anything will pass through it, and I want that to turn on when it comes through and turn off when it goes away. So what I need to do is first of all animate this. The reason why I set up the flame sheet as a child of the torch, 2 reasons. One, it goes anywhere I bring the original torch, so it stays together with it. 2, if I have an animator, and this is a little bit confusing, their animator is the state machine. The animations, the actual animations that we create, are stored inside the animator. Okay? If I have an animator on the parent, I can also affect all the children of the parent. So having one layer of animation, I don't need to have like, let's say I had fire and then I had sparks and I had like, I don't know, rainbows or whatever, and they all came from the same kind of like source. I don't need to have an animator for each one. I can have one animator on the parent, which in my case is the torch, and that can control all the children. Kind of okay so far? Yes. 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 The animator is the state machine. So let me make that state machine. Let me go to the torch dump. And I can manually do it, add component, and I can search for animator. I can do that manually. So you see animation different to animator. Okay? It is called animator. I'm just saying tor so you know. So animator is there. I can also just go like straight to window, animation, and just create an animation. And it will automatically tell me, hey, you can't make an animation without having an animator on it already. And it'll make one for me. So I can just click create, and it will, watch here, it's going to add an animator for me once I finish typing animation. Let's call this flame on. And you see the way it's added an animator for me? So it's created one for me already, and the animator is called torch dump. All right, it has no animations because I haven't created any animations, but I set up one called flame on. Press record to start animating. Let me grab and make sure I'm selecting this. So let's say frame 1 is this sprite sheet. Let's move across to here. Sprite 2. Let's go here. And I'm editing the properties, and you can animate editing properties. Later, we'll see you can animate all properties. So I can even, well, most properties. So I can even animate movements and stuff like that. So I'll show you, like, after this, we'll create a door. So, and I can animate that completely in Unity. I don't need to make a sprite sheet. It's completely animated in Unity because I can control transforms. But anyway, let's do this. So, maybe let's go back to this one. Let's go to this. And I just want to make it have a bit of variation. Let's press play. Cool. All right, maybe a bit too slow. What I can do is grab all of these. You haven't seen this before. And if you grab all of them, you can like squish them in. So there's 2 ways to slow it down or speed it up. You can use the sample rate, or you can just do what I just did, which is squish and stretch the animation, okay? Is the first frame the same as the last frame? No. I'm getting a bit of stuttering, but anyway. Getting a bit of stuttering, but it's fine. Maybe I'll copy the first frame to reduce the stuttering with that one. Yeah, much better. Cool. All right, all good so far. All right, so I have one animation that just has this flame looping. It's called flame on. Great stuff. I can create another animation. Create new clip. This is going to be called flame off. Yay. With this one, record. Remember I said you can animate any property? So I can change the sprite render in here, but the easiest thing for me to do is just turn it off. And I've just basically disabled its ability to show sprites, which means it's now disappeared. So the fire bit, it's disappeared. I'm not editing the torch, remember. I'm editing the child because I'm selecting the child right now. The animator lives on the torch, but it can edit everything that's a child. All good? Yeah? Okay. If I'm going too fast, let me know. You can see it saved here. At flame off animation, it turns off the sprite render. So let's close that. Now let's look at the animator. So I need to select this. If you don't have it, you have to go to Window, Animation, Animator. Yes. I'm not putting the animations in the child, so I have the animator on the parent object. So any animations I make will be stored inside that animator on the parent object. It just means that I can select children and animate them. Yeah, that's all. So anything from the parent downwards, I can animate. So if I wanted to, let me just make another stupid animation. Animation that we're gonna delete. Create a clip, whatever. Animate this, and if I want to, I can animate everything from the parent downwards. And if I want to, I can have a stupid animation like that. As long as it's a child, I'm able to control all the properties. All right, so I do not want that animation, but it's no harm it being. Okay, so let's go to the animator window. Again, window, animation, animator. The animator will show me my last selected animator. So I'm going to select the torch stump, making sure I'm selecting this one. If I select something else in the scene that has an animator, it'll swap to that one, okay? So right now, it's a torch stump. And you can see all those animations that I made are here. Flame on's there, flame off is there, and my stupid animation that I can just put to the side. I don't care about it. And by default, the orange one is flame on. So I can change that. I can be like, by default, set that to be the default animation. Default meaning when I press play and I start the game, that's the default animation it's going to play. All good so far? Okay. What I can do, let me just show you, is I can do transitions. Transitions mean I can change from one state to another state. Let me just show you a very simple one. So right click, make transition. I'm just going to go from flame off to flame on. Click on flame on, so it's going to go together. They're like linked. It's a node. And then I make a transition back. Right click, make transition from flame on to flame off. So this will just basically play one, go to the other animation, come back, go, and it'll keep looping, okay? This is not what I want. I just want to show you how it works. I'm just going to press play. And you should see it. See the way it's playing flame off, and then it goes to flame on and back, and it keeps looping between because I have it going as a loop. All good? And you can see that it's playing because it shows you the little like bar that it's playing through the animation. Cool? All right, so this is great, but obviously we don't always want just a looping animation. We want stuff to happen when we tell it to. So how are we gonna tell it to do stuff? Let me just delete these transitions. So I want, in my case, I want this to work so if a collider comes near that torch, it will activate. If a collider goes away from the torch, it turns off. Everyone okay with that concept? We all know what colliders are, right? Like, you have done colliders, have you? Okay, cool. So if a collider comes near, it turns on. If a collider goes away, it turns off. First thing I need to make sure is that I have a parameter that controls which animation to play. Parameters are here in the animator. Don't worry about layers right now. Just going parameters. If I click plus, there's a bunch of parameters you can do. Are you all familiar with like variables like float, int, bools, and all that? All good? Okay. Um, for today, I'm gonna do a bool just to make it easy. Um, yeah, I'll do a bool. And a bool is true or false. So everything is either true or false. I'm gonna make a bool. I'm gonna call that flame on. So if flame on is true, do something. If flame on is false, do something else. All good so far? All right. Now you saw the transitions. I can also go from any state, and this means no matter what animation is playing, if a certain parameter is reached, go from that state to whatever I tell you to. So right click from there, make transition to flame on. I'm gonna make a transition to flame off. So I have these two transitions, and I can click on the actual transition itself. So from any state, go to flame on, and I scroll down, there's a condition. So it'll only go to flame on if, and I can add, it automatically will add the bool I just created. So go to flame on if flame on is true. Does that make sense? Yeah? And then if I click on the other one, that condition, let's do that if flame on is false. All good? So there's a bool. If the bool is true, it plays the flame on animation. If the bool is false, it plays the off animation. Good? All right. So let's test that before I write any code. Let me just test that. Press play. We're watching this. All right. So the parameter here. Tick flame on. Good stuff. That's working. Tick flame off. Goes to play the other one. All good? Yeah? All right. So that's great, but obviously I'm not going to sit there clicking flame on and flame off for every single object in my game. I want it to happen automatically. So I need to have code. So what I want to do is when a collider comes near, it's detected. When it's detected, it changes that bool. And then automatically the animator will convert that bool and be like, oh, okay, the bool's changed. I will change what state I'm playing. Okay? Yes. No, well, it won't get the collider. It'll just be that collider functions for everything. That's a child. So I'll show you. So I'll go back up to the torch stump, and let me get a collider. Let me make it a. Let's make it a circle collider. I think that makes sense. So I've got a little circle, and I can increase the radius. So this is going to be the radius where it detects something. Now, usually colliders collide, right? They like hit off each other. I can do something called a trigger, right here, is trigger. A trigger doesn't actually have collisions, but it detects other colliders. All good? Is that a question? You should have a collider, otherwise it can't collide. I'll show you that now in a sec. Okay, so it's got a trigger, and I'll just show you because I have Peaches here, and Peaches does have a collider if we remember. Come here, Peaches. And if we remember Peaches, that has a collider, but it will just pass through because it's a trigger. So Peaches did hit the other colliders, but it passes through. It's not an actual collider anymore. It's a trigger, so it can detect collisions, but it doesn't actually stop. It doesn't have physics. Okay? All right. So, go back here. That's great. We've got a trigger, but the trigger isn't doing anything. So this is where we need code. We need to tell the trigger to watch out for a collider, and then what to do when it sees that collider. So I'm going to write some code. And again, I'm going to give this to you, so please no panic. So add component. You can start typing the name of your code, and if it's let's call it trigger animation trigger? Animation trigger. And I can just do that. New script, create an ad. And let's open that in Visual Studio. Have you all done code in Visual Studio in Unity yet? Or it's all like processing? Okay, so this is the first Unity code. Okay. It'll be fine. Okay, so every time you create a new code, a new script, sorry, Unity will just give you this, and it's like there's a start. Start is called at the start of the game. Update is called every frame. Okay, so anything I put into update will happen every single frame. Anything that I put to start will happen once at the start of the game. That's it. So these are like functions: void start, void update. We're gonna yeah, exactly. What do you have in processing? You have like okay, void draw is like I don't remember the order, but does that happen after start, right? Yeah. Okay. So Unity has very similar shit, and this is why again we like I guess one of the reasons you're taught processing. It has stuff. So it has like void awake. Awake happens before start. It has void, like I can't remember. There was like a fixed update. So that's like every physics frames. There's different types, and they happen at different things. But don't worry about that stuff. The basic ones always have start. So that's when you literally press play. Update happens every frame. I'm not going to use either of these. I'm going to use a different function called void on trigger enter to, you see it's auto completing for me. Oh, enter 2D. And that is when a collider is detected entering my trigger. Does that make sense? All right, this is just a function that exists in Unity. So it's looking for a collider 2D and it's looking for a collision. All good. Oops, sorry. So that's on trigger enter 2D. And then let me do void on trigger exit 2D. So something will happen when a collider comes in, and something will happen when a collider goes up. All good so far? Yeah? Okay. And I just want to test this. So I wouldn't usually test this, so I know it works, but I just want to show you to make sure you're okay with it. Entering, and then we'll do print exit. So print will write to the command line, and then Peaches should be able to help us here. Let's look at console, display. Peaches. Boop, enter, exit, enter, exit. You can see it like updating. You see the number on the right hand side? So that's updating as I go in there. All good? See on the console, on the command line, on entering all the way to the right of that, that's the number of times that's happened. So let me do it again. See, it's going to go to 5 and then 5. Okay? All good? All right. All right, so we know it's working. Happy days. So because we know it's working, just comment that off. I can now actually do stuff with it. So first thing I need to do is I need to do, there's many ways you can do this, but I'm just going to show you the easiest way. A public animator, so I'm looking for an animator, and I can give it a name, any name I want. My animator. You can call it whatever I want, okay? Let me just save that and I'll show you what happens. When you say public in Unity, if I scroll down to the torch dump, it has an empty field. Because I set it as public, it has an empty field and it's going to be looking for something of type animator because it knows. I said look for animator, so it knows to look for an animator. Okay? So I can just drag in myself and it'll look only for the animator on the torch dump. Does that make sense? Yes? Is that a bit confusing? You good? Y'all need a break? We okay? All right, so it's going to look for the animator. Great stuff. So my animator, and this is where I can tell my animator to do stuff. So, oops, sorry. My animator dot set bool. And remember, we set up a bool. So I can do set bool. And it's going to ask for two things, which is the name of the bool and then whether to be true or false. Oops, sorry. True. And the name of the bool was flame on, I think. I think it was flame on. You need to make sure to spell it correctly. Yes, flame on. And the case has to be correct as well. So you have uppercase, it needs to be the same uppercase. So on the enter 2D, set bool flame on, true. And then let's just copy paste that. And when it exits, flame on is false. Okay. So it knows which animator to deal with because second. Because when I dragged it in here, it knows to affect the torch dump animator. And it's gonna tell the torch dump animator if you have a bool called flame on, set it either true or false depending on the trigger condition. So let's press play. Grab peaches. Flame on. Flame off. Flame on. Flame off. All good? Make sense? Okay. So now what I can do is, I have this one thing. I can do a prefab. I don't know if you've seen prefabs before. Let me just create a folder called prefabs. Prefabs are where I created a something which has like code attached to it, physics attached to it, or like basically an amalgamation of stuff. A game object with a bunch of stuff on it. And instead of having to remake that every time, I can create something called a prefab. So if I go to a different scene, I can just grab that prefab and copy paste it. I can also do stuff where if I edit one prefab, I can change all the prefabs. So it just makes my life easier. The way to do that is just drag it into the scene. Sorry, into the assets. That's it. That's now a prefab. It's gone blue, so you know it's a prefab. And now if I duplicate these, they all work the same, okay? So let me just press play. Again, I don't need to redo the code. I don't need to redo anything. Grab Peaches, and Peaches should be able to continuously activate these as they go along. That make sense? The other thing I can do is, as I said, I can tweak stuff on one of them and it propagate it to all of them. So I can make the flame a bit redder, and I can leave that prefab by itself. That's fine. Or I can go to overrides and then apply all, and that will apply to every single other prefab. Okay? And again, when you're building your level later, build out other prefabs, because if you make a mistake or you set up something and you want to tweak it, you don't want to copy like 25 things and then realize, oh no, I should have added this. If it's a prefab, you just add it to one of the prefabs and override it to everyone else. Okay? All good so far? Okay. So let's set that up. That's done. That prefab is now available in my prefabs folder. I can delete this. It's gone from my scene. It still stays there. So again, even if I delete from my scene and I don't need it, I can just drag it back in. It has everything. Torch dump, flame sheet. It's got everything in there. All right. Now, any questions? Yeah. So if I only, let me just do, I'm just going to make a copy. So I have a little hallway that the lights turn on and off as you walk through. Sorry, so the question was, if I change one of them? Yes, it changes to, again, let's do that quickly. Red. Override, apply all. You see the prefab changes? Yeah, okay. And then I can revert that. We just undo. All right, and the prefabs are reverted. Okay, so this should work as Peaches goes through. They'll turn off and on and off. What if I wanted to turn on and stay on? What do? Get rid of the... Yep, I can get rid of the exit condition in the code. There's multiple ways. I can get rid of this entire function. So it only can ever turn on and it never turns off. I can also, in the animator, instead of transitioning from any state to flame off, let me do it so from any state it goes to flame on, but from flame on it can only go to flame off. So the flame on is, oh no, that will still not work actually because it has this. So let's go start from flame on. So I only have a transition to go off. So that should start with them all on. And then, oh, sorry, there's no condition. Not bad, not bad, not bad. flame mode is false, and let's stop flame mode is true. And that'll only turn off. That should only turn off. There we go. Just took a little while because it's playing through the animations. So this gives me the other the other kind of like thing about transitions. So you see the way when I did it, there's a bit of a delay. So if I play again, let me do it again. Grab Peaches, and I'm gonna pass Peaches through it really quickly. So you see there's a bit of delay, right? And the reason for the delay is if I look at the transition, there is this little transition time, and it says has exit time. Exit time means that the animation, whatever is playing, needs to finish playing its animation before it's allowed to go to the next one. Okay? If I turn that off, and if I make the transition really short, let's make this transition really, really short. This should be almost instant. See that? Much faster. Okay? So it doesn't need to finish the animation, and the transition, meaning like the time it takes to go from one animation to the other, is shorter as well. Okay, yeah. So, okay, so you need to walk me through the scenario. So I have a torch on the wall. Is it on or off? Okay, on. Okay. So there's two things I can do. I can just have it as a on animation that loops, and then I can just have a like off animation that has the flicker built in, and then it just turns off. I can just do that. So it's just two animations anyway. Not if I don't give it a transition, which is what I've done. So I've given it no transition back. It's impossible for it to go back, you know? There's no way for it to go back to the original. So as long as I make sure it doesn't, or if I don't, if I get rid of the exit condition, so it doesn't detect any exit, it only detects something coming in. All right. Anything else? Yeah. Where is this? This one here? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Most of the time, we're gonna mess with like entry. Entry is like start, like when you press play. Where does it go? And we're gonna mess with any state. Most of the time, the exit is like basically it turns off the animator and stops. Like, yeah, but like generally, like it's very rarely used. To be honest, you probably won't be using it. You'll probably be using the animations in here. And then if I want to, I can make oops, sorry. I can make transition to this if I want to. So that should play to that. So you can use as many animations as you want, and it just depends on the state. Okay. This actually does raise an important thing. So you see the way they all move to that position? Like they all like teleported over there because that's where I made my animation. So because the parent was told to make the animation at that position, the animation contains that transformation information. So let's, if I go to the torch dump window, animation, let's go to blah blah blah. Let me get rid of the position keys for the torch dump. I think rotation should be okay. And let me press play. So what do you think will happen? I've gotten rid of the torch, the parent's position, so it shouldn't transform over there. The rotation is still there, so it should still rotate. So what do we think will happen? Yes. So what's going to happen? You would think that's what will happen. So the children are always relative to the parents. Okay? So again, that's why you have a parent. If I animate the children, it doesn't matter where I place the parents, the animation is relative to the parents. If I animate the parents, that's an absolute world position. So if I animate the parent and I say to like bounce at a certain position, it will always teleport to that position and bounce at that position. If I animate the child will animate based off where the parent is. and what the parents do. That make sense? Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Should do, yeah. Yeah, it should do. The children should, in most cases, follow the parent. The exceptions are if you hard code like a position, if you tell it like it must be world position, this position. Basically, there's two types of position in Unity or any game engine. There is a world position, so that's like in the whole world, where do I exist? And there's a local position. Local position is where do I exist relative to my parents. Okay. By default, I believe animations are set to local position, so it's relative to where their parent is. If they have no parent, then they'll use the world position. That makes sense? Okay. All right. So I was going to show you a door, but I don't think we have enough time for that. But I feel like you would get the concept. Instead of doing a rotation, I would just have like a parent door frame, a child door. When a trigger happens, that door animates and moves up. Does that make sense? You know how to do that? Great. That's your exercise for today. Set up a door and make sure it animates, because I want to make sure that you're able to create animations that are based off triggers. Again, I'll be there. Serena's going to be there for this. From next-ish week onward, we're going to start looking at world building, and basically setting up like basic kind of rules for the world that you're going to build. Until now, we're just messing and playing with stuff. We're also going to mess and play with the character that you don't need to care about. But we'll start like being serious about what we make and having it be almost final. Okay, any questions before we finish? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yes. Uh, you know what? We can do it right now, because I can do that in 10 minutes. I can't do a door in 10 minutes, but I can do that. So let me make a thing. All right, so let me just, and this is gonna be awful, so I'm sorry. But let me make like a little star here, and something here. Beautiful. Okay, so these are all, let's imagine these are all different like sprites, okay? Imagine they're beautiful. Very important. Okay, let's have this. Save that. Oh, no. Computer. Save as a PNG. Let's save that as test. What's she? All right, so save that and let's import that into the project. I shouldn't put it prefabs, I should put it in sprites. Source sheet. I can't remember how big that was. Was that 248? I think it was. No, let's do pixels per unit. Okay, I'm gonna do multiple, so it knows it's multiple, and then I'm gonna open the sprite editor. Sure. Right, so I have the different sprites here. Now, there's a few things I can do. I can manually set a sprite and do that. That's now a sprite. I can manually do that. Click and drag. And I can name it here as well. So I can call that like green triangle. And based of this, I can create more different sprites, and that will tell Unity, here's one sprite, here's one sprite, here's one sprite. Okay? Now, like, let me delete that. So delete, delete, delete. I can also do slice, automatic. Let me slice that. It will automatically look at where it sees pixels, and it'll try to draw a sprite around where those pixels kind of like are stuck together. Now, it's sometimes fucked up, as you can see where it says copyright there. it thinks each of those are individual because they're a little bit separated from each other. So I can delete these. Oh, sorry. I need to manually delete these. Otherwise, I have loads of little sprites. Can I hold shift and drag control instead? I can manually do it. I'm sure there's a way, but I don't know at the moment. Otherwise, I'll get loads of little sprites. This was meant to be a meme, and this is now wasting a lot of time. Okay, so I have these sprites, and so it automatically sets those. The thing that you need to remember is the pivot point. So if I click on these, there's a little round thing. That's the pivot point. When I tell it to rotate, it rotates around that pivot point. Most of the time, it's in the center. If I want something to, for example, let's say this is a door, I may want that pivot point at the bottom because I want to rotate around the bottom. Does that kind of make sense? Let me make this pivot point ridiculous. I'll put it over here. Let's apply, and I'll show you how that affects it. So now it comes in. There's all the separate little pieces. Oh, I missed a couple of the text. Damn it. If I drag this one in, when I rotate it, oh no, it's fine. Sorry, I should rotate around pivot point. Where's pivot point? Local. No. Okay, well in this case it's working. It should rotate around that pivot point. I think I have it set to rotate around center, but I don't know where that setting is. I don't know where it's gone. Oh, why not? Oh, here, pivot. There we go. So it rotates around the pivot point. Okay? Because it's where I set it to. Center instead, and center will rotate around the center. Oh, this is for a different thing. Sorry, not that. So pivot is here. Cool. The same with the door. I put the pivot at the bottom, so it's pivoting on the bottom. And this is around the center, so it's pivoting around the center. Okay, so these are all the separate sprites. So they all come in as one giant sheet. Yeah. With sprite, it's always here. Sprite editor. Always there. Okay. All right, so again, you can either automatically slice. It'll try and find areas. It always kind of messes up sometimes. Not always, but sometimes it messes up. Or you can manually select a sprite. Okay. You can also do the other stuff, which is like grid by cell size. That's if you have different cells, or by cell count, which you've seen before when we were creating sprite sheets. Any last questions before we have to finish? All good? Okay, so you don't have to make a door. Just make something. If you don't want a door, that's fine. A door is just very useful. Make something that will animate based off a collider going into it. I'll put that code in Brightspace and in Discord, and I'll upload the video as soon as I get to class. Okay?